In today's video, I am going to explain anatomy and function of chest muscle and anterior shoulder muscle. I want to focus on superficial muscle on first part, then on second part, I'm going to focus on deep muscle. Basically, I'm going to explain this part. There are two big muscles on anterior part. First one is this one. This is pectoralis major. Also known as pec major, right? And this one is deltoid. Deltoid, particularly anterior fiber. There are a lot of common functions between pectoralis major and deltoid anterior fiber. Let me explain functions of pec major first. What is main function of pec major? That is shoulder flexion. Shoulder flexion is when you raise an arm from front way. This is flexion. Next one is adduction. Adduction is you closing arm movement. That is adduction. Next one is internal rotation. Internal rotation is you literally rotate your arm inward. That is internal rotation. One more function. That is kind of a specific movement. When you do abduction is open arm this way, abduction like 90 degrees, then you close shoulder this way. That is like a dumbbell fly movement. That is horizontal adduction. Horizontal adduction, as I said, that is like a dumbbell fly movement. See, pec major can do so many movements. Shoulder flexion, adduction, internal rotation, and horizontal adduction. These are main functions of pec major. What about deltoid? That's kind of similar with pectoralis major that can do shoulder flexion. And interestingly, that does shoulder adduction. Wait a minute, deltoid does shoulder abduction, right? True, deltoid does abduction and so does adduction. What do I mean? Deltoid has different function depends on shoulder position. About 60 degrees. Below 60 degrees, that does shoulder adduction actually. That's very interesting, don't you think? Then above 60 degrees, then deltoid does abduction. I have to say that again. 60 degrees is kind of a threshold for shoulder abduction or shoulder adduction. Below 60 degrees of shoulder abduction position, below 60s, that does shoulder adduction. Above 60 degrees, that does shoulder abduction. That's very interesting thing. Alright, anyway, deltoid does both shoulder abduction or shoulder adduction, depends on angle of shoulder joint. Okay, next one is internal rotation. Yep, deltoid also does internal rotation. That is anterior fiber. General functions of deltoid, that's flexion, shoulder abduction, shoulder adduction, and internal rotation. That's similar to pec major, right? And I want you to focus on this part. This is like a separation between pec major and deltoid. I said separation, however, there's almost no separation between these two muscles. It's like all one continuous structure. If pec major gets tight, this tightness may affect for deltoid. Vice versa, if deltoid anterior fiber gets tight, that may affect for pec major. Sometimes I see these two muscles as one continuous structure. I believe there is myofascial connection between these two muscles. Alright, this is basic anatomy of anterior part of chest and shoulder. Let me explain deep chest muscle. Alright, now pec major is dissected. That is gone. If you dissect pec major, there's tiny pectoralis muscle. This is pectoralis minor. Pectoralis minor. This is deep to pec major. Pec major is shoulder muscle. However, pec minor is shoulder girdle muscle. That is different. What do I mean shoulder girdle muscle? That attaches to ribcage and scapula. Pec major does not attach to scapula. Pec major, shoulder muscle. Pec minor is shoulder girdle muscle. So pec minor moves scapula. Which direction? So let me explain that. Pec minor moves scapula for 3 directions. One movement is scapular depression. Scapular depression that brings scapula downward. Next one is scapular abduction. In deltoid part, I said deltoid does abduction. However, that is shoulder abduction. Pec minor does scapular abduction. That is different, completely different movements. You have to be able to distinguish these two movements. Deltoid, shoulder abduction. Pec minor, scapular abduction. Alright, one more movement, that is downward rotation. It is a little bit difficult to describe downward rotation in this picture. Imagine there's scapula deep to this structure. Downward rotation is this way. On the other hand, this is upward rotation. I'm sorry for inconvenience. The blue one, this is downward rotation. Yellow one, this is upward rotation. These are functions of pec minor. Now let me explain related structure. As I said, in this picture, pec major is dissected. If you dissect pec major, you see pec minor. Also, you see myofascial structure deep to pec major. What is this blue structure? This fascia is called clavipectoral fascia. Clavipectoral fascia, as I said, this is deep to pec major, and this fascia is surrounding pec minor. Very important. Why is this fascia so important? One thing is that covers pec minor, and this is important station for myofascial connection. If you go up, if you go superior way, you can go to clavicle, then you can go to anterior neck. This is a connection to neck. If you go laterally, you can go to axilla and arm fascia. So this is important terminal for anterior neck connection and axilla shoulder connection. I believe this clavipectoral fascia is important for ribcage movement, clavicle movement, neck movement, and shoulder movement. This is very important myofascia. So in today's video, I explained anatomy of chest muscle and anterior shoulder muscle. I explained pec major, deltoid, and pec minor. Additionally, I explained myofascia related to chest muscles. If you liked today's video, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. See you next video.